These two sisters used to play very close to each other since childhood. The younger sister's name is Dalmi, and the older sister's name is Injae. Later, their father could not stand being abused and scolded by his boss, so he chose to resign and start his own business. Their mother was angry and divorced their father. The older sister followed their mother, and Dalmi followed their father. One day, the older sister, Injae, told Dalmi that their mother had remarried a rich man, so Injae was about to follow her mother to America. Injae also said that Dalmi should have followed mother. She said that Dalmi had made the wrong choice, and Injae did not want to be Dalmi's older sister anymore. Dalmi angrily chased after her older sister, and the two got into a fight. That was the day their father successfully raised investment capital, but that was also the day he got into a car accident and passed away. From then on, Dalmi could only rely on her grandmother. The lives of the two sisters had changed dramatically when they grew up. The pajamas that the younger sister was wearing were bought from street vendors, while the pajamas that the older sister was wearing were expensive silk pajamas. The younger sister was washing her hair in a cheap bathroom, while the older sister was leisurely soaking in the bathtub. The younger sister's breakfast was just cheap kimchi rice, while the older sister's breakfast was bread and high-class coffee. The younger sister didn't have a decent pair of shoes. Broken heels could be used again after a few taps. The older sister had a whole room filled with shoes and designer handbags. The house where the younger sister lived was just a small, ordinary house, while the older sister lived in a luxurious villa. The younger sister mostly walked when she went out, while the older sister had a private car to pick her up and drop her off. Today, Dalmi went into the bathroom and took off one of her high heels, then used a marker to mark the peeling skin. After she finished marking, she blew on it and put it back on her foot. Then, she took off the other shoe and used the marker to mark the tip of the shoe and blew on it again to dry the ink quickly. When she finished, she looked back and saw that it wasn't bad. Then she walked out of the bathroom with great confidence. On the other side, the older sister, Injae, walked leisurely taking selfies, while her assistant carried her luggage and followed behind. They were all there to attend a business sharing session. Dalmi was an audience member sitting below the stage, and Injae was a guest sitting above. When it came to the Q&A session, Dalmi directly grabbed the microphone and asked Injae if she had ever made a selfish choice. Jae-in admitted to it, but Jae-in didn't mention the fact that she broke up with Dalmi when they were young. When the presentation ended, the two of them went to a cafe. Injae looked very elegant and asked Dalmi if she wanted to start her own business. Dalmi said yes. Actually, the business Dalmi was thinking about was to resign from her job and set up a hot dog stand with her grandmother. Injae asked Dalmi if she had a boyfriend. Dalmi lied that she did to show off in front of her older sister, but in fact, she was almost 30 years old and was still single. Coming to the place of the couple's heart, she only knows how to take selfies. Injae glanced at Dalmi's old peeling shoes and just smiled, then asking Dalmi's boyfriend's name. Dalmi said that her boyfriend's name was Dosan, the youngest winner of the Math Olympiad. Not only was he smart, but he also had a bright future ahead of him. Injae smiled again. On the way back, Injae invited Dalmi to a fancy party and asked her to bring Dosan along. Injae said that he really wanted to see what kind of person Dosan was. Dalmi immediately refused when she heard that, because she had never met Dosan. Just as she was about to leave, Injae suddenly turned around and said, "Thank younger sister." Thanks to her younger sister's blessing, she knew how right her choice was. Then, Injae pointed at Dalmi's torn shoes and exposed Dalmi's lie about her perfect boyfriend. From that, Injae knew enough about how miserable her younger sister's life was. After saying that, the older sister turned around and sat in the car. Dalmi angrily clenched her fists. She quickly chased after and stopped the car. Then she went to her older sister and angrily said to send her the location and time of the party. She and Dosan would go there together. However, Dalmi immediately regretted her stupid actions. The boy sitting in the car on the opposite side was also made to laugh by her. That boy followed Dalmi all the way. Then he went to a hot dog stall. Standing and looking at the hot dog stall from afar, he suddenly froze. It turned out that this boy had won the prize of $100 million, but couldn't even buy a hot dog. Seeing other people eating noodles deliciously, he could only swallow his saliva. This boy wandered around the streets. It was raining heavily at night, but he didn't have a home to return to. Suddenly, the hot dog stall owner stopped him. Seeing that he was drenched in rain, she said to him, "It seems like you don't have a place to live, right?" The young man said that he had a home. The old woman told the young man to take a closer look at the cherry blossom tree over there, on which hung a birdcage. She said that she left the key in there, and after saying that, she turned and left. Although he was very skeptical, the young man still followed the old woman's words and went to the store. After looking around, he opened the newspaper on the table. There were 2 hot dogs underneath. He quickly sat down and started to eat them greedily. After he was full of energy again. It was at this time that he discovered the old woman's piggy bank. bank, and his eyes kept looking at it. The next day, the old woman also remembered her piggy bank, which contained all the wealth she had accumulated. The old lady woke up quickly and ran to the store. Fortunately, the money tube was still there. The money was still intact. Only then could the old lady breathe a sigh of relief. At this time, the young man also came forward to remind the old lady to deposit the money in the bank. The old lady dragged him to the bank to deposit the money. After depositing the money, the young man saw the notice board of the securities company. It turned out that he had participated in the National Simulated Investment Competition and had also won first prize. That 100 million was the virtual money he had won. Thinking of his investment ability, the young man begged the old woman to open a securities account for herself. After that, he went to the library every day to study and trade stocks. Dalmi's parents quickly divorced, and her older sister followed mother. Dalmi had no friends. Seeing her niece crying sadly, the old lady asked the young man to write a letter asking to be friends with Dalmi. This young man's name was Ji Pyong, and he didn't want to use his own name. Seeing the newspaper reporting on the math genius Do-san, the two of them decided to use the name Do-san to write the letter. Dalmi was very happy when she received the letter, and very quickly she finished writing a reply. Just like that, they continued to contact each other through the letters left in the birdcage, and they became good friends. Dalmi was gradually able to step out of the psychological darkness. Ji Pyong is indeed a genius at investing. In just over a year, the amount of money in the old woman's stock account increased from 8 million won to 80 million won. Today, he wanted to withdraw this money to go to school in Seoul, but in the end he found out that the account had been deleted. He was extremely nervous. He hurriedly ran to find the old lady. Seeing that the old lady had given all the money to her son, he was extremely angry. After the old lady's son left, Jing angrily rushed to question the old lady why she gave all the money to her son. The money was earned by his own investment. He demanded that the old lady pay him back. The old lady was extremely sad and turned around, went into the store, then came out with a large bag and gave it to Ji Pyong. Unexpectedly, there were thick stacks of money inside. It turned out that the old lady gave her son 8 million of her own money. As for Ji Pyong's money, she had not touched it. Ji Pyong felt very ashamed. He bowed his head, said sorry, then turned around and ran away from this place. Sitting in the train station, Ji Pyong felt very guilty. At this moment, the old lady suddenly appeared and gave him a new pair of shoes. The old lady even bent down to help him put on his shoes. The old lady told Ji Pyong that if you became successful in the future, don't contact me again. The old lady's words completely broke Ji Pyong's heart. He hugged the old lady and choked up, saying that she must take good care of her health. 15 years later, Ji Pyong had become an investor with assets worth tens of billions of won. During a business startup presentation, he recognized his old friend Dalmi from that year, so he followed her all the way home and he met the old lady again. He went to the old lady's hot dog stall. The old lady was extremely happy when she saw Ji Pyong. She couldn't believe her eyes. She was very happy that Ji Pyong had succeeded. On this side, Dalmi wanted to bring her boyfriend Do-san to the party, but even online she couldn't find any news about Do-san. She didn't know how to contact Do-san. Seeing Dalmi's desire to find Do-san, the old lady was very worried. The old lady asked Dalmi why she hated losing to her older sister. Dalmi said that if she lost, it would mean that choosing to follow father was a mistake. People would sympathize with her. They would all think that she regretted it, but living with father was fun and happy. She didn't regret it at all, so she couldn't lose this time. Seeing her granddaughter crying so sadly, the old lady was heartbroken. The old lady went to find Ji Pyong, hoping that he could help her find that person named Do-san. Coincidentally, a person named Do-san kept sending emails to Ji Pyong, wanting to find him to invest together. Ji Pyong was quickly able to find Do-san. At that time, he was being chased and scolded by his father, and he was scolded all day long for not being able to do anything properly. His career was unstable. Ji Pyong advised the old lady not to look for that person named Do-san. Not only can Dalmi not regain her appearance, but sometimes she is even laughed at by In-jae. He says is that it's still luck in the midst of misfortunes. The probability of Dalmi finding Do-san was almost zero. However, Ji Pyong was surprised right after that. The old lady suddenly received a call from Dalmi saying that she had found Do-san. It turned out that because had no money left, so Do-san was preparing to sell some of the assets in the house, so he posted used items for sale online. Coincidentally, Dalmi found him, and she confirmed through the photos that this person was the Do-san she was looking for. So Dalmi set a time and place to meet. Finding the Do-san she had been waiting for day and night made Dalmi extremely happy. The time for the meeting Ji-pyong quickly arrived, and Ji-pyong suddenly rushed over and dragged Do-san away. Do-san was about to scold this person when he suddenly discovered that this person was a famous investor. Was this to invest in them? Do-san was so excited that she couldn't speak coherently, and his hands were shaking. In the car, Ji-pyong told Do-san to sit and read Dalmi's letters. These letters were all written by her, and he also told Do-san the story of these letters. It took Do-san half a day to finally understand that Ji-pyong came to him not because she wanted to invest, but because he wanted him to pretend to be Dalmi's boyfriend. After they finished negotiating, Do-san decided to agree to help Ji-pyong. The main condition was to help their Samsam technology enter the stock market, but Ji-pyong refused because the company's strength was really weak. After reading all the letters, Do-san was finally moved by Dalmi. Do-san decided to still go help Ji-pyong. Do-san borrowed a suit, then got on his bike and started to leave. Dalmi went to the party. She was still not familiar with situations like this, so she seemed a bit shy. Then, Dalmi found a place that was not too prominent and away from the crowd. When Dalmi's mother looked at her, the Dalmi immediately turned head and pretended to look away. Ji-pyong also went to the party, saw Dalmi standing in a corner. He was about to go help her, but unexpectedly was a step too late. Do-san appeared right in front of Dalmi and started asking her. Seeing her mother and In-jae walking towards her, Dalmi immediately hugged Do-san and told him to pretend to be her boyfriend. As soon as they met, In-jae started to use every means to probe and ask Do-san if he was planning to start a business. Seeing that she couldn't continue pretending anymore, Dalmi was frustrated and about to let go when Do-san immediately grabbed her hand. He answered In-jae's question that he was a businessman. In-jae continued to ask which round his company was investing in. This question completely surprised Do-san. He basically didn't understand the language of the investment world. When everything was about to be exposed, Ji-pyong came to help the two of them. Ji-pyong was an extremely successful person in the investment world. Any project he set his eyes on was definitely a very good project. At this moment, In-jae was also extremely surprised. In order to avoid letting the truth be exposed, Ji-pyong deliberately made an excuse to pull Do-san away. This pretense was extremely successful. The party ended and Do-san was about to take the bus when Ji-pyong immediately stopped him and took Do-san to the parking lot. Ji-pyong then told him to drive Ji-pyong's luxury car and take Dalmi home. Ji-pyong told Do-san to nod and smile more. Just follow the model of a warm man. After taking Dalmi home, he had to quickly find a reason to break up with her. Do-san drove to pick Dalmi up and the two of them went to the riverside to have dinner together. Dalmi asked why Do-san didn't question her actions today, because today she asked him to act out a drama in front of her older sister. Do-san said that he understood her situation at that time and also said that he followed the model of a gentle and warm man. Dalmi was made to laugh by his straightforward answer. The two of them talked happily like that. Do-san thought everything about him was boring, but Dalmi said he was interesting. This surprised Do-san a lot. Ji-pyong had a hard time finding the two of them. Just looking at them made him look very anxious. Ji-pyong quickly sent Do-san a text message telling him to quickly take Dalmi home and cut everything off. Dalmi thought it was a text message from Do-san's girlfriend, so she told him to quickly go home. Do-san remembered all the good things between the two of them. He was completely attracted to her to the point of not being able to pull away. He ignored Ji-pyong's wave and immediately turned around and gave Dalmi his business card. At the same time, he also told her that he had never had a girlfriend before. Dalmi also said that she had never had a boyfriend either. Dalmi was so excited when she received Do-san's message. Dalmi was so happy that she couldn't stop laughing. Dalmi had told her grandmother that she had met Do-san. The timing was perfect. She complimented Do-san on how he looked like a model and how he looked so elegant in a suit. But she didn't know that the person who actually wrote the letter to her was Ji-pyong, not the current Do-san. Dalmi went to the store and there was a huge crowd in front of her. Her co-worker immediately pulled her aside, and it turned out that there was a celebrity concert nearby, so there were a lot of fans gathered here. Her co-worker wanted to pull Dalmi away from the crowd, but she resolutely pushed her co-worker away and tied her hair up. For Dalmi, this was an opportunity, a great time to break her sales record. Then Dalmi confidently walked towards the store. The inside of the store was in chaos and the staff was extremely busy. The usual tricks no longer worked. Dalmi had a new idea. She immediately played that celebrity's song. The fans immediately started cheering loudly. In the blink of an eye, Dalmi became the host and the order inside the store was restored. Dalmi started to ask, "What do you want?" When she encountered an uncooperative customer, she did not hesitate to switch him out. Everything returned to normal, and in the end, that day's sales reached $10 million, setting an all-time high sales record. Dalmi's colleagues all applauded her. Although her abilities were outstanding, the company still couldn't promote her to a full-time employee because of her education level. So Dalmi decided to resign and prepare for her startup. She hugged a Aroid palm and quickly left the company. She sent a message to Do-san Do-san, saying that she wanted to give him a aroid palm. She was going to his company now. After learning that Dalmi wanted to go to Do-san's shabby company, Ji-pyung immediately panicked. If she went there, everything would be exposed. Ji-pyung had no choice but to drive to Do-san's company in a hurry. Then, he told them to move the computer to his villa. They quickly dumped all the wires, took out the computer, plugged in the power cord, and even took down all the photos and changed the signboard. All the employees changed into elegant suits, and they instantly transformed into male gods in an instant. When Dalmi arrived, she was surprised because the place was so big. Dalmi said that she had something to say to Do-san. She said that she planned to quit her job and start a business like Do-san. Just by looking at everyone's reactions, you could tell how far this had gone. After Dalmi left, Ji-pyung said that the play should stop here. The old lady would soon tell Dalmi the truth. However, Do-san had already fallen in love with Dalmi. He didn't hope that Dalmi would find out the truth. If she knew, he wouldn't have any chance. Ji-pyung didn't think highly of their company. He thought that they didn't have any chance. So bankruptcy was only a matter of time. So Ji-pyung advised them not to waste any more money. They should have found another way for themselves soon. However, Ji-pyung was surprised to find that they had won the world championship in the artificial intelligence competition. This was a turning point for their company. Ji-pyung could not bear to ruin Dalmi's good thoughts, so he advised the old lady not to tell her the truth at this time. He would go and help Do-san become a successful person. The old lady asked Ji-pyung was so persistent like that because he liked Dalmi. Ji-pyung was very confused when he heard that. In the small shabby room of Samsung Technology Company, Do-san was also trying his best to convince the employees in the group to cooperate with Ji-pyung. His colleagues asked him if he had feelings for Dalmi. Meanwhile, In-jae was being ignored by her stepfather, who had handed over his entire career to his biological son. In-jae, in a fit of anger, resolutely left her stepfather and decided to go out on her own. Each of them had their own goals and had signed up for the Sandbox Venture Capital competition. The lovers' chance meeting unexpectedly turned into this scene. They quickly sat down and fixed their messy hair. Then the girl changed out of her worn-out shoes, fixed her clothes, took out her lipstick, and touched up her makeup. After finishing and picking up the books about startups, she stood up. She was almost exposed. After turning back to the bus, Dalmi immediately asked where Do-san's car was. Do-san was immediately stunned, and it took him a while to react. Do-san lied that he had stayed at his friend's house last night, and that it was inconvenient to drive there, so he didn't come by car. That's why he was wearing that outfit. Because Dalmi felt that this style was very friendly, so she didn't suspect anything. She suddenly said that tomorrow was his birthday, and asked him if he had any plans. Do-san was stunned again, thinking that it was probably Ji-pyung's birthday, because those letters were written by Ji-pyung. Do-san quickly pretended that he was so busy that he forgot his birthday, so he still didn't have any plans. Dalmi said that tomorrow she would help him fulfill his wish. After saying that, Dalmi got on the bus, and when saw the bus gradually driving away, Do-san hesitated for a moment. He resolutely left his good friend behind and chased after the bus, then got on the bus and sat down next to Dalmi. At this moment, Do-san's eyes were so stupid that he couldn't hide it, and he was so nervous that he didn't dare hold her hand. After Do-san returned, he touched his hand while walking, smiling foolishly. In order to pick up his girlfriend and spend his birthday together, Do-san had borrowed a bunch of branded items. This expensive car was also borrowed. The watch worth hundreds of millions of won was also borrowed. This suit also belonged to someone else. Right now, he was standing in front of Dalmi's house. Ji-pyung told him to be more natural while waiting. Do-san asked Ji-pyung if he remembered what he had written in the letter, but Ji-pyung still couldn't remember. Dalmi appeared and said that his childhood dream was to playing cards, but Ji-pyung couldn't remember why he had that wish. Do-san could only say that so much time had passed that he had forgotten why he had this wish. Then they decided to go back to the office to playing cards. Ji-pyung hurriedly picked up Do-san's friends and moved the computer over. They unloaded the boxes and installed the computer. They changed the signboard to other photos and finally put on their suits. Luckily, they were temporarily finished before the two of them showed up. Dalmi took out the snack and said that these were gifts from her grandmother to Do-san. Looking at the table full of his favorite snacks, Ji-pyung was completely surprised. He finally remembered his wish that year. It turned out that Dalmi had written to him about the Mid-Autumn Festival and asked what his wish was. Ji-pyung was an orphan and was watching TV alone. He saw a family happily playing cards together on TV, so he told Dalmi that his wish was for the whole family to sit together and play cards. Ji-pyung was very touched. He didn't expect that the old lady and Dalmi still remembered his childhood wish so clearly. The old lady still remembered the snacks he liked to eat. Dalmi said that maybe it was because he loved playing with his family during the holidays so much that he had this wish, right? Ji-pyung played happily. He had finally fulfilled his childhood wish, but he was also very sad because he had pushed Dalmi to someone else with his own hands. At this time, he had begun to have very different feelings for Dalmi. That night, when brought Dalmi home, Dosan asked her why she liked him. Dalmi replied, "Because you're my first love. The letters you wrote comforted me for a long time." Hearing that, Dosan couldn't help but feel disappointed, because all of these were because he was impersonating someone else. He himself was just a stranger. He was afraid of losing Dalmi. After returning, Dosan returned these expensive things to Ji-pyung. Ji-pyung said that this outfit was bought for Dosan, so he could keep it. But Dosan refused because it was just doing a good deed, not an investment. Dosan told Ji-pyung to give him advice. He would follow it unconditionally. He was determined to use his own efforts to win Dalmi's heart. Finally, this day had come. Dalmi followed her sister's gaze. Seeing Dosan below the stage, he was very embarrassed and lowered his head, not daring to look up. So Dalmi went down the stage to find Dosan. She said that he had a very good office and also had a lot of investment capital. Why did he appear here? Dosan was extremely embarrassed. He didn't know how to answer her. In-jae immediately went to use her phone to scan the QR code on Dosan's employee card and found out that he couldn't get investment capital and only won first place in the Coda competition. Then, In-jae let out a disdainful smile. Dosan was so nervous that he clenched his fists. He held back for a long time before he could say anything. First, he apologized to Dalmi for lying to her and disappointing her. They were participating in the Xenbox Venture Capital competition. The first stage was the CEO selection challenge. Only those who passed the test were qualified to be CEOs and could choose members to form a team to participate in the second round of the competition. Dalmi and In-jae both passed the test and went on stage to receive the CEO t-shirt. As for Dosan's team, they failed the test. If no CEO selected them for their team, they could only withdraw from the competition. At this point, they just needed to invite Dalmi to be their CEO and form a new startup team. Then they could continue participating in the competition. At this moment, to challenge Dalmi, In-jae also made a similar proposal. In-jae wanted to invite Dosan's team to become her development staff. One was a new CEO, and the other was a mature and very capable CEO. How should they choose? The whole team immediately pulled Dosan aside and reminded him not to let his love affect him. There was too much of a difference between an amateur player and a professional player. Dosan told his teammates that one wanted to join them, the other wanted to invite them. The person they were looking for was a comrade, not a boss, so they had only one choice. Dosan successfully convinced his teammates. At this moment, In-jae told Dalmi that Dosan was pretending to be talented in front of you. Aren't you mad at him? Dalmi said she wasn't mad because she had also wanted to pretend to be talented in front of someone. After the negotiation, Dosan walked in front of Dalmi and held out his hand to her. He asked her if she would agree to be the director of their Samsam technology. Dalmi immediately agreed. Next was the second phase of the competition. They just had to come up with a feasible business plan and use 3 minutes to convince the investors. After discussing, Dalmi's group decided on the topic, using the learning method to verify the authenticity of the notes. However, their creative ideas were all heard by this pink-haired girl. This girl was a technician in In-jae's team. She suggested that In-jae should also use this topic. The technicians in In-jae's team all graduated from MIT, and they had experience participating in this venture capital competition many times. They quickly succeeded in establishing a viable business model. Dosan's team was not so lucky. They repeated it many times but still could not succeed. In the end, they had no choice but to rewrite the framework. They had to start over. This was a big project, so if they could not succeed this time, their challenge would be considered a complete failure. They could only withdraw from the competition, and Dalmi would also admit defeat to her sister. In the bathroom, the two sisters once again had a conflict with each other. In-jae said that Dalmi's programmer seemed to be incompetent and said that Dalmi always made the wrong choice. Dalmi got angry and told In-jae to shut up. She said that it was still too early to conclude anything. It was still unclear who won and who lost, even though she said that she didn't know what to do. Seeing Dosan, she hurriedly ran to him. She nervously asked how the results were. After knowing that the results were out and that the accuracy rate had exceeded 99.8%, she was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. She unconsciously leaned on Dosan's shoulder and burst into tears. She had endured so much hardship. Now, all they had left was the presentation. Whether it would be successful or not would be decided at this moment. However, at this moment there was a disagreement among the teammates. They did not agree to let Dalmi present because Dalmi's academic ability was not high. They thought that she could not explain the knowledge of artificial intelligence, so they suggested that Dosan should present. But Dosan did not agree. He insisted on letting Dalmi present. While they were still arguing, Ji Pyong suddenly appeared. He said without hesitation that Dalmi should present. Although it was not guaranteed that they would succeed, if they were to give their presentations, it would really ruin everything. What they had failed to do for the past 2 years, it was impossible for them to suddenly succeed today. Seeing that the two of them still had opinions, Ji Pyong assured them that if Dalmi's presentation failed, he would use his personal name to invest in them. Only then would the matter stop there. Ji Pyong went to find Dalmi and helped her revise the draft for her upcoming presentation. He also did not forget to remind her of a few points to pay attention to. Dalmi's presentation was extremely successful and received a round of applause from everyone. She also received praise from the judges. Everything seemed to be going very smoothly. It seemed like they had hope of entering the Zenbox startup base. Next was In-jae's presentation. Her topic was exactly the same as Dalmi's group, but the direction was very different. Dalmi's direction was to determine the authenticity of the notes, and In-jae's was to create new fonts based on the notes. The judges immediately proposed that the two groups compete to use Dalmi's system to recognize the fonts created by In-jae's system to see if it could recognize them. This was exactly a battle between two sisters. The hall immediately fell silent. After a while of operation, Dalmi's system could not recognize the newly created fonts. They had lost. Do-san sadly lowered his head. The pen in his hand had broken in half. Dalmi glanced at her older sister and sadly closed her eyes. It seemed that they would have to admit defeat in this competition. The female teammate had also finished packing and was preparing to leave. Dalmi was so tired that she fell asleep on the sofa in the lobby. Ji Pyong couldn't help but walk over and sit down next to her when he saw this. Seeing Dalmi in a deep sleep, he remembered what happened when he was little. When he turned around, Dalmi had already sat up. She was sitting motionless and looking at him non-stop. Ji Pyong was embarrassed, so he made an excuse and quickly left. Dalmi immediately chased after Ji Pyong. She wanted to ask him clearly about everything. Why did he want to help them, even if he had to lie? Just as Ji Pyong was about to answer her, Do-san ran over. He informed her that they had entered the Zenbox. Sure enough, Samsung Technology Company was on the list. Dalmi was so excited that she ran straight into Do-san's arms, completely forgetting Ji Pyong's existence. Ji Pyong was extremely disappointed. He could only turn around and leave quietly. Suddenly, Dalmi remembered Ji Pyong. She left and wanted to find Ji Pyong to ask clearly about everything. Do-san pulled her back and said that he was the one who begged Ji Pyong to help them, because he and Ji Pyong were as close as brothers. Do-san then went to find Ji Pyong and said that I had already talked to Dalmi on your behalf. Do-san said that I had lied to Dalmi, that it was because you and me were very close that you was helping we in this competition. Ji Pyong heard that and suddenly felt extremely disappointed. However, on the first day of joining the Zenbox, they fought with each other. Ji Pyong, as the advisor, felt extremely disappointed, so he stood up and walked out. Dalmi immediately chased after him. She wanted to explain to Ji Pyong, but he directly said that they had just received $100 million in business subsidies and were already fighting like this. If they wanted to grow to tens of billions of dollars, then it was clearly just a fantasy. Furthermore, there was a more important problem, which was that she couldn't even resolve this dispute over shares. As the representative, she was the biggest problem. Seeing Chul-san and Young-san leave in anger, along with In-jae's ridicule, Dalmi felt very defeated. She recalled what happened early this morning. There was a company just because of a share dispute that the friendship of more than 20 years has completely ended. At that time, she didn't think so. She thought that their friendship was too fragile and her company would never be like that because everyone was very united with each other. Everyone's shares would be divided equally. Everyone was very satisfied and she was very proud of that. Unexpectedly, Ji Pyong directly gave her a warning blow. The list of shareholders is 1 million points. He dares to guarantee that after looking at this list of shareholders, there will be no fools in this world who will accept investment. There won't even be one person like that. This kind of equal division of shares will only become a stumbling block for the representative. If there is even one person who disagrees, nothing can be done. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Do-san said that he wouldn't let that happen. Their friendship would last forever and would never change. But if those words really worked, then no one would get divorced anymore. If the WP people got divorced, everything would end as soon as the two broke up. But the company is not like that. If they turned their backs on each other, the only ones who would suffer the loss would be the investors' money. No investor would be able to take such a risk. They were forced to concentrate their shares in the hands of the most important person, at least 60% of the shares. Dalmi returned to her office. Do-san was currently staring blankly at the shareholder list. He didn't expect that his company, like everyone else, would encounter so many problems on the first day. They all felt very sad. On the way back home, Do-san comforted Dalmi that she shouldn't worry too much about this. He would think of a way to convince his teammates, and he had also decided to let her be the company's representative. He said that he wouldn't regret his choice this time and encouraged Dalmi to believe in him. Dalmi also knew that she still had many shortcomings, so she started to update her knowledge about CEOs. If she didn't understand anything, she would send a message to Ji Pyong. She was so engrossed that she didn't know when it was already morning. Ji Pyong was scared when he woke up. Just one night, there were 416 messages from Dalmi. Ji Pyong told Dalmi that there is no perfect CEO in this world. The most important thing is to learn how to make choices. No matter which choice you make, you will be scolded. But if she was afraid of being scolded, she wouldn't be able to make any decisions and would become a failed representative. A good person or a CEO, she could only choose one of the two. She couldn't have both. After a silent evening, Chul-san and Yong-san had also thought things through. Although the crisis this time had been resolved, everyone agreed to concentrate the shares on Cho Dalmi, but Dalmi decided to give all the shares to Do-san. After that, she and Do-san would stand on the same side. Although this wasn't the most ideal plan, it was still able to successfully convince Ji Pyong. The $100 million funding would soon be transferred to the account. After experiencing this incident, Do-san told Ji Pyong that he planned to frankly admit everything to Dalmi today. He had to resolve the hidden crises first. Ji Pyong told him not to say it yet. If he told her the truth, his relationship with Dalmi and even Samsung Technology would end. But Do-san said that there probably wouldn't be any changes. Today, Dalmi invited Do-san to her house to play. When they entered the house and saw each other, both Grandma and Do-san were completely surprised. They had just met each other in the hospital during the day. Grandma's eyesight was getting worse and worse. Soon Grandma would not be able to see anymore. Just as Do-san was about to speak, Grandma quickly signaled him not to mention this. Then Grandma turned to Dalmi and told her to go out and buy soy sauce, while the two of them stayed behind to talk. Grandma told Do-san not to tell Dalmi about this. If Dalmi found out about this, she would cry loudly again. Grandma wanted to see Dalmi smile more often. When Dalmi smiled, her eyes were the most beautiful. Just look a little more. Even if Grandma becomes blind in both eyes, Grandma will have no regrets. Do-san originally wanted to confess the truth to Dalmi, but now he didn't know how to tell her. Ji Pyong remembered Do-san saying that he wanted to confess everything to Dalmi, and Do-san's words to just wait and see. Ji Pyong was extremely angry. He immediately turned the car around and went straight to Dalmi's house. Coincidentally, he met Dalmi, who had just returned from buying soy sauce. Dalmi was extremely surprised to see Ji Pyong suddenly come here. Looking at Dalmi's attitude, Ji Pyong knew that Do-san had not told her the truth yet. He could only continue to pretend to be Do-san's close brother and pretend not to know grandmother. After bowing to grandmother, he said that he had something urgent to discuss with Do-san. Do-san was a little scared when heard that. Do-san immediately hid behind grandmother and then hurriedly said that I would do as you said, so you didn't need to worry. Ji Pyong didn't know what to say anymore. He was about to turn around and leave when Dalmi invited him to stay for dinner with the family. After dinner, Dalmi saw the two of them off. Ji Pyong told Dalmi that he had answered all 461 of her questions and sent them via email. Ji Pyong reminded her to check her email. Seeing Dalmi's admiring gaze towards him, Ji Pyong turned to look at Do-san provocatively. Seeing something stuck to Dalmi's hair, Ji Pyong was about to step forward, but thought that his current status was not appropriate, so he could only withdraw his hand. Do-san was not willing to be weak. He walked up to Dalmi and told her that she was the CEO holding 71% of the shares. He also affirmed that he was completely on her side, so don't worry. Then he reached up and took the thread stuck to Dalmi's hair. Seeing the intimate actions between Do-san and Dalmi, Ji Pyong also felt very uncomfortable. Sitting in the car, Ji Pyong laughed at Do-san, saying that he wanted to tell the truth about those letters, but why didn't have the courage to say it. Do-san was a bit embarrassed. He wanted to get off the car and take the bus home, but Ji Pyong said, I wanted to take you home. When Do-san said that he had feeling to Dalmi, now Ji Pyong immediately stopped the car. The next day, the company decided to do the EYES project. Everyone felt that this project was very good, but unexpectedly, Ji Pyong opposed it. He frankly said that this project had no meaning at all. The project was for the visually impaired, so it was impossible to make money through advertising campaigns, and it also required a lot of money. The more users, the more money it would cost. Who would agree to invest in such a project? In order to bring happiness to others, they would likely suffer disadvantaged, so they had to consider it carefully. But Dalmi was very persistent because this project was very meaningful. Dalmi begged Ji Pyong not to tell Do-san about this so that he could focus on research and development. She would think of a way to raise funds herself to solve the financial problem. They decided to accept a project from Morning Group First, if they just proposed a solution, it would be $50 million. If they helped build it, it would be $300 million. If they helped them run and manage it, it would be over $1 billion. If the project was accepted, the company's survival problem would be solved. The funding for the I project would also be solved. Doosan was very worried about Dao Mi because the representative of Morning Group was her older sister's stepfather and also her mother's current legal husband. Dao Mi didn't want to meet this man, but to find a sponsor for the project, she could only risk it once. As long as the project could go smoothly, it would be worth it, but didn't expect that this company would be required to take 100,000 photos. Once they collected enough data, the solution to the problem would be implemented by their development team. Isn't this treating developers like them too badly? Doosan clenched his fists in anger. He told the delegate that they should find a part-timer to collect the data, but the delegate said that hiring a part-timer to take 100,000 photos was too expensive, and those people didn't know what to take. It would be better to let artificial intelligence experts like Doosan's group do it. This person also said that there was nothing on the Doosan group's website and advised Doosan's group to put their company logo on the homepage and mark it as a cooperative enterprise with Morning Group. This matter alone was worth more than $50 million. Representative Du Jung was even more outrageous. He said that the reason he chose their company was because of Dao Mi's mother. He said that if Dao Mi had chosen to be like his daughter and follow mother, he and she would have become father and daughter by now. He also said that she would have suffered a lot living with her father. Doosan could not bear it any longer when he heard these words. He immediately went and directly smashed Mr. Du Jung's nameplate. He turned to Dao Mi and told her that he could no longer do this project, after saying that he resolutely turned around and left. Dao Mi also hurriedly followed Doosan outside, leaving Du Jung still bewildered. Dao Mi chased Doosan to the rooftop. Doosan really did not want to see Dao Mi humiliated, so he begged her to give up this project. Seeing how stubborn Dao Mi was, Ji Pyong didn't stop her any further. Ji Pyong brought her a list of companies with large social responsibility funds. These were all companies that cared about the welfare of the disabled, or companies that needed to improve their image. They were all very interested in projects like The Eyes. Dao Mi visited each one on the list, but they all told her to go home and wait for more information. As for the other companies, they said that their budget for this year had already been used up. She even went to the far suburbs with her clients just to have a chance to meet them, but she still got nothing. Despite her best efforts, she still couldn't attract any investment. Meanwhile, Doosan and his colleagues on this side, after many days of hard work, the Eyes project had finally completed the test and would soon be launched on the market. Everyone was extremely excited and looking forward to it. Dao Mi was still worried because only she knew that the annual cost of 1,000 users was about $30 million. So the annual cost of 10,000 users was $300 million. But now she still hadn't received any investment. She was finding things too difficult right now. The Eyes project only had a few downloads, so everyone was feeling very disappointed. But only Dao Mi was secretly happy. She happily invited everyone to go out for a beer, and she was so drunk that she didn't know anything anymore. She didn't expect that life would slap her in the face so quickly and hard. Early the next morning, in order to support the Eyes project, the baseball star who participated in the top show tried to introduce the Eyes project to everyone. He also said that this was good news for the visually impaired. After seeing the news, Ji Pyong was so surprised that he fell off the treadmill heavily. The number of downloads for the Eyes project increased rapidly. In no time, there were 30,000 downloads. Everyone was very excited, but Dao Mi was completely devastated and said that 30,000 people a day, so it would be $1 billion a year. So where would they get the money? Everyone happily went to KTV to celebrate, but Dao Mi looked depressed. There was nothing more to regret in life. Dao Mi looked at the list in her hand. Now only Morning Group was left that Dao Mi had not gone to ask for investment, but she really didn't want to beg them anymore. She was thinking about giving up the Eyes project. But right at this moment, Doosan told her that her grandmother's eyesight was getting worse and worse. Soon her grandmother would not be able to see anymore. Dao Mi returned home originally wanting to pretend to laugh and talk like usual, but in the end, she couldn't help but burst into tears. The next day, Dao Mi begged In-jae to take her to see Du Jung. Dao Mi also said that if In-jae did not agree, she would kneel down and beg this older sister. After arriving at Du Jung's resting room, the two of them were extremely stunned. Doosan was kneeling in front of Du Jung. Because Doosan had broken Du Jung's name tag last time, Du Jung now wanted to sue him for property damage and threatened that if they did not reconcile, he would leave a criminal record in the future. Because he did not want Dao Mi to worry about him, Doosan quietly came here to beg Chairman Du Jung to forgive him. Du Jung asked Dao Mi why she came here. Dao Mi said that she wanted to win the company's community fund budget, but Du Jung said that if the two of them knelt down and begged, he would reconsider. He said that he just wanted wanted to teach the two of them a lesson and not to act like that in the future. No one can predict anything in this life. Unexpectedly, Dalmi responded with the same sentence. After speaking, Dalmi took out her phone and opened the recording. It turned out that the last time went to see Do-jung. Ji-pyong had sent a message to Dalmi and told her to record the conversation in case of emergency. So she secretly opened her phone and recorded the entire conversation. Unexpectedly, it actually worked now. Hearing the recording, Do-jung was momentarily speechless. There were already many young people outside, and quite a few reporters had also appeared. If they had this, there would definitely be many interesting articles published. Chairman Do-jung was a supporter of the dream of empowering young people, but behind back was a completely opposite person. This would definitely immediately become a hot search. Dalmi took this opportunity to ask him to use the Morning Group's community fund to invest in her project, and he also had to reconcile with Do-san. Do-jung was so angry that he drank the whole bottle of mineral water in one go. In-jae also looked at her and smiled in approval. He could only reluctantly agree and announced that this year the Morning Group's community fund would invest in the I project of Samsung Technology. Ji-pyong suddenly stopped the car in front of Do-san, then gave him the hair tie that Dalmi accidentally left behind. Ji-pyong said that he discovered it while washing the car. Do-san immediately asked he if she had gotten in the car, but Ji-pyong didn't say anything, just pulled up the car door and drove away with a very satisfied smile. Do-san could only rub her head in confusion, then kick the bicycle parked nearby. Seeing Do-san's reaction through the rearview mirror, Ji-pyong smiled smugly. However, all of this was just Ji-pyong's imagination. Only then did Ji-pyong calm down and stop the car in front of Do-san, then give Dalmi's hair tie to him. Unexpectedly, Do-san did not react as Ji-pyong had imagined. Ji-pyong was disappointed and could only hit the steering wheel to vent his anger. In fact, he did not know that his goal had been achieved. After going outside, Do-san quietly looked down at the hair tie in his hand to the point of being dumbfounded, and even called his best friend to go out drinking with him. In the end, he got so drunk that he passed out. Young-san and Chul-san had no choice but to call Dalmi and tell her to take Do-san in tonight, because if he came home like that, he would definitely be beaten up by his father. If Do-san had stayed the night at their house, his father would have quickly come to find him. While they were waiting for the bus, they unexpectedly met Ji-pyong there. Ji-pyong then took them home, and of course he was the one who carried Do-san up to his room. In the end, Ji-pyong was so tired that he couldn't speak, and Do-san threw up all over him. Just as everyone was about to eat, Do-san suddenly came out of his room with bewildered, asking why he was here and where his best friend was. After learning everything, Do-san quickly apologized, and Dalmi said it was okay. Dalmi then asked Do-san if he wanted to stay the night. Ji-pyong heard that and also asked to stay the night. Only then did Ji-pyong realize that he liked Dalmi. Early the next morning, when it was time for breakfast, everyone was surprised to find that Do-san had left without saying goodbye. Just then, Dalmi's phone suddenly rang. It was Do-san calling. Do-san wanted to ask Dalmi out on a date and bring her grandmother along. Ji-pyong was extremely disappointed. He stood in front of Do-san. Do-san quickly made a fake move and dodged past Ji-pyong. Ji-pyong still couldn't accept it. Do-san even honked the horn repeatedly. It turned out that Do-san had read Dalmi's reply to the feedback comment about the Eyes project. He knew that she had a wish, which was that she hoped that before her grandmother completely lost sight, she could take her grandma to many places to see many beautiful sights. So Do-san rented a car to take the two of them to see the beautiful sea. Dalmi sat reading the business plan that Ji-pyong had revised when she suddenly discovered that his handwriting was very familiar. Dalmi hurriedly looked for the letters from 15 years ago and discovered that the handwriting was exactly the same. She took out the lecture manuscript that Ji-pyong had edited for her. The handwriting was exactly like the letters from 15 years ago. She remembered that Ji-pyong and Do-san's birthdays were even on the same day. The next day, Dalmi wanted to ask Do-san what was going on, but in the end, she didn't dare to say it. In the end, she had to change the subject. While reporting on the project situation, the Eyes saw Ji-pyong's familiar handwriting, so Dalmi kept staring at him. Ji-pyong even thought there was something on his face. Seeing that Dalmi was starting to feel suspicious about Do-san and Ji-pyong, Grandma was extremely worried. Coincidentally, Ji-pyong had just arrived here, and suddenly Grandma remembered a letter when Dalmi wanted to find Do-san to ask him to pretend to be her boyfriend. The letter she wrote to Do-san was placed in the birdcage where the two of them had exchanged letters before. Grandma had no choice but to ask Ji-pyong to get that letter and deliver it to Do-san so that Dalmi would no longer feel suspicious and neither of them would suffer any more pain. But Ji-pyong did not agree to do so. He discovered that he liked Dalmi. He wanted to tell Dalmi that the person named Do-san was fake. Grandma was very sad. Grandma did not agree to let him do so. Now Dalmi and Do-san are dating and they support each other very well. At that time when Grandma asked Ji-pyong if he liked Dalmi, he clearly said no. Now it's too late. Grandma said you can't do that. Ji-pyung said why not? Why can Do-san but not me? Returning to his car, although Ji-pyung felt very sad, his mood gradually calmed down. Ji-pyung immediately sent a message to grandmother and apologized for his anger just now. He also told her that he would immediately go get the letter Dalmi sent to Do-san and give it to Do-san. After getting the letter, he couldn't control himself, so he opened it and read it. After reading it, when he looked up, Ji-pyung was surprised to find Dalmi in front of him. It turned out that Dalmi had mistakenly taken her grandmother's phone when she went out this morning. After receiving Ji-pyung's message, she felt extremely curious, so she came here. Although she had been suspicious for a long time, when she actually saw Ji-pyung appear here, she was still extremely surprised. At this time, Do-san coincidentally called Dalmi. Dalmi immediately asked him if he remembered the address where they used to exchange letters 15 years ago. Do-san stuttered and couldn't answer her question. Dalmi immediately hung up the phone. Despite Do-san's repeated calls, no one answered. Dalmi was extremely agitated. She begged Ji-pyung to tell her the truth. Who wrote those letters 15 years ago? Ji-pyung could only tell Dalmi the whole truth, that her grandmother asked him to write those letters. Her grandmother wanted her to have another friend. The name Do-san was just a name the two of them saw in the newspaper. It was also the Do-san he found. Ji-pyung then told Do-san to pretend that he was the one who wrote the letters and attend the party that night. Dalmi was completely devastated. It turned out that everything from beginning to end was a lie, a complete lie. Do-san found Dalmi at the bus stop. He also frankly admitted everything to her. At first, he thought it would only take one day, but he didn't expect that he would end up falling in love with her. Then, because of his greed, he didn't want to tell the truth. Just like that, things dragged on day after day. Do-san said that he wanted to be Dalmi's ideal type, but he couldn't do it. Unexpectedly, Dalmi said that even she didn't know what kind of person she loved. After saying that, she turned around and left this place. At night, Dalmi sometimes holds a baseball and looks absent-minded. Sometimes held the letter from 15 years ago, lost in thought. At this moment, she didn't know who she loved. She cried bitterly. Finally, the day of the presentation came. If they succeeded, they would be able to win the $50 million prize money, along with investments from countless investors. If they failed, they could only leave the race. The first to take the stage was In-jae's company. Her presentation was extremely successful. In-jae said that she was looking for a global partner and hoped to have the opportunity to cooperate with 2STO. Alex from 2STO Group said that her presentation was very impressive and they were also very interested, but they were considering another group of candidates. Alex wanted to listen to the other candidates' presentations before making a decision. Next up was Samsung Technology Company. Dalmi's presentation was also extremely successful, but their accuracy was only 92.4%, while In-jae's was 93.2%. Their team was a little bit behind In-jae's team. Alex felt a little disappointed, so Do-san stepped in to explain that accuracy shouldn't be seen only in numbers, but the application environment is also very important. We tried to find a balance between high accuracy and reducing the application size. The judges asked In-jae's team to come back on stage to let the two teams compete again, and asked them to use the oldest microcontroller to test to see if they could proceed normally. After a while of busy operation, the program of Samsung Technology Company was still able to run smoothly, but the program of In-jae's team could not run normally. The smoothness of the running Samsung Technology program made the judges extremely surprised. The result was completely beyond their expectations. This time, Samsung Technology Company won. Everyone in the team hugged each other happily, finally winning once. This time, they really won, and won spectacularly. Soon they received an offer to buy back the application from 2STO. 2STO wanted to pay $3 billion to buy back their company. The condition was that they could work at the company's headquarters for 3 years. After hearing this price, everyone immediately lost their composure. This was a number that they would never dare to imagine in their entire life. After seeing the employees of 2STO's off, they were so excited that they couldn't hide their joy. It was as if they had reached the pinnacle of their lives. $3 billion and could work at the Silicon Valley headquarters of 2STO's. The temptation was really too great. Everyone was full of aspirations for the future, and they had already started discussing what English name to choose. Should they sign up for a business English class? However, when they thought about the fact that the name Samsung Technology was no longer there, everyone couldn't help but feel a little regretful. They returned to the old office where they had just started together without prior arrangement. In addition to nostalgia, they also thought about the future together, even planning to start a business again in 3 years. They would drive autonomous cars together. The next day, after Ji-pyung learned that Alex wanted to buy it back instead of investing in this project, he rushed to the company to stop them from signing the contract. As a result, Do-san and Dalmi had already gone to Alex's place. After Ji-pyung finished reading the copy of the contract, he immediately took out his phone and called Dalmi to stop them from signing the contract. Yongsan immediately snatched the phone from his hand and deleted Dalmi's number. He told Ji Pyong not to stop them from getting rich. Ji Pyong said that this was a typical talent acquisition. Alex did not see the value in their company at all, just wanted to hire them to work as engineers for his company. Once the signing was completed, their team would be disbanded on the spot. Except for the technical staff, the other members would be fired immediately. After saying that, they hurriedly drove to Alex's place, but it was too late. When Ji Pyong arrived at Alex's place, Dalmi and Do-san had already signed the contract. They also happened to pass each other on both sides of the elevator. Sure enough, on the first day after the company was acquired, their entire team was disbanded, and Alex only brought 3 technicians to the US. Dalmi and the remaining female colleague were immediately fired. The EYES project would also be completely terminated. Do-san was furious and asked if this was a scam. Do-san remembered that Alex had said he would take them all in, but Alex said that was not what was written in the contract. Oral promises were not legally binding. Alex advised them to think of the positive aspects. The company was going to be acquired at a good price, and everyone would have money and the opportunity to gain experience in Silicon Valley. However, Do-san did not agree. He thought that they should just terminate the contract. They just act as if nothing had happened, but Alex advised Do-san not to act on impulse. Since the contract had been signed, it could not be arbitrarily cancelled. According to the contract, they would have to pay 6 billion in damages. Hearing the compensation amount of 6 billion, Dalmi lowered her head sadly. Do-san did not know what to say. He really did not want to hurt Dalmi, but he had no other choice. Ji Pyong walked over, he looked at Dalmi, then slowly said that since the contract had been signed, then they should accept the truth. 2 STOs bought their company for $3 billion, not because they had their eyes on the EYES project, but because they had their eyes on the accuracy of their solutions. These words really hurt the listener. Do-san agitatedly asked Ji Pyong to stop talking, but Ji Pyong had no intention of stopping. Dalmi was completely devastated. Yesterday they were still full of hope for the future. They were still thinking and discussing together and naming English and even signing up for a business English class. Why did things suddenly turn out like this? Do-san chased Ji Pyong outside, then rushed over and grabbed him by the collar. The two of them didn't say a word and just started fighting. After the fight, Ji Pyong told Do-san to give up the EYES project and advised Do-san to use his good technology to make a profit. But unexpectedly, Do-san begged Ji Pyong for help because developing the EYES project was for Dalmi's grandmother. Grandma's current eyesight wasn't good. Grandma wouldn't be able to see anything soon. Ji Pyong was completely stunned. He hurriedly went to grandmother's hot dog shop. Seeing that grandmother could no longer read the bill clearly and could not even leave the EYES app to calculate the total money, Ji Pyong could not help but shed tears. Seeing that grandmother had finished counting, he hurriedly reached out his hand to dry his tears. He forced a smile and walked over to her. Dalmi had just returned home when she saw Ji Pyong coming out of there. Dalmi wanted to invite Ji Pyong out for dinner, and she hoped he could give her some advice on what she should do next. Ji Pyong said that what he was about to say might be a bit harsh. First, the contract itself was fine, and second, Dalmi's group was facing off against 2 STOs. That was like hitting a rock with an egg, so his advice was for Dalmi's group to accept reality and cooperate with the 2 STOs. Dalmi didn't know what to say. They really had no better way. On this side, Do-san's mother asked him how he and Dalmi were doing, but since Dalmi found out that Ji Pyong was the one who wrote the letter, he had no way of knowing what Dalmi was thinking. Do-san also wanted to know. Coincidentally, Dalmi had just sent a message asking him if he had slept yet. Do-san was about to reply that he hadn't slept yet, but Do-san's mother immediately told him to delete it and take off his coat. Then she raised her hand and beat him up, saying that he didn't understand anything about girls. Then she explained that Dalmi meant for him to call her back. Sure enough, their phone calls started with distinguishing the types of medicine that grandma had, and then they kept talking about one thing after another. Neither of them wanted to hang up. Early the next morning, Do-san hid outside Dalmi's house, preparing to arrange a chance meeting between the two of them. Because a few days ago, Dalmi had told Do-san that she still couldn't figure things out. She felt very hurt when facing Do-san and Ji Pyong, so this time she told them not to meet each other alone anymore. So in order to see Dalmi, Do-san could only pretend to meet her by chance. When Dalmi took the initiative to say hello, Do-san pretended and said it was a coincidence. He said that he knew there was a good English cram school here, so he planned to come here to ask around. Unexpectedly, he met her. Dalmi smiled slightly. It seemed that she had seen through Dosan's little thoughts. However, they did not expect that the change would come so quickly. When they returned to the company, their team had suddenly disbanded. Dalmi and her female colleague had also been fired. The next morning, Dalmi wore a new dress and spent time meticulously applying makeup. She went to Dosan's house very early because today was his birthday. They had arranged for today's meeting in advance, but unexpectedly, Dosan had actually forgotten about his birthday. It was only natural that because so many things had happened recently, he had put all his attention on solving the contract issue. Dosan told Dalmi not to worry too much. Sitting on the bus, Dosan was still engrossed in reading a book about corporate litigation. When he read about a similar case, he turned to discuss it with Dalmi, but she was completely uninterested in these things. Dalmi took Dosan to an extremely high-class French restaurant, but Dosan still refused to let go of his unfinished work. All he could think about was Dalmi, and he wanted to cancel his contract with 2STO. Dalmi said that the odds of a computer genius like him appearing in this world were very low, so she wanted Dosan to go to Alex's company 2STO to develop his talent, because if he followed Alex, his future would be bright. She advised him to ignore her. Dosan didn't want to continue listening to her, so he quickly opened the book in front of him. Dalmi immediately reached out to close the book, and she continued to advise Dosan to seize this opportunity. Dosan finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He said that Dalmi and he meeting was fate. Dosan took the book and went out first. Dalmi chased after him and tried to persuade him again, but Dosan didn't want to give up Dalmi and the EYES project. Whether it was the Sandbox Venture Capital headquarters or the cramped old attic office, he said that he just wanted to stay here. Seeing this, Dalmi had no choice but to use her last resort. She said that Dosan wasn't the one who wrote her letters when she was little, so there was no need to remember her anymore. These words really hurt Dosan. The two sisters Dalmi and Injae had always secretly fought each other every time they met, but this time, Dalmi suddenly came to apply for her sister's company. Seeing Dalmi come here for an interview, all the colleagues in Impopmi, Injae's company, were stunned. They all stared at Dalmi curiously. Injae asked her what he was doing here. Dalmi didn't explain much and directly put her CV on the table. She sat down and said clearly that she was here to apply. Injae didn't say anything but sat down leisurely. Injae wanted to know what her younger sister wanted to do. Injae asked why Dalmi wanted to apply to this company. Seeing that the director had spoken, the others could only settle down. Dalmi said that what Injae said during the presentation that day left a strong impression on her. Dalmi said that Injae's goal was to make this world more progressive and developed. These words were exactly the same as what her father had said 15 years ago, because her father told her that he quit his job not just because he was beaten by his boss, but because he was preparing for that better world. At that moment, Dalmi suddenly realized that perhaps Injae and she had the same goal. Very quickly, Dalmi was recruited as the vice president of Injae's company. Not long after, they established a separate subsidiary, Chongyung Company, with Dalmi as the director and in charge of the new company's business. At this time, on the other side of the ocean, Dosan's team and his colleagues, responsible for the Smart City project of 2STOs, have also achieved very good results. Ji-pyung has also been promoted from team leader to director. 3 years later, Dalmi invited Ji-pyung to her house for Mid-Autumn Festival. She also asked him to come over a little early to help cook. In the evening, the four of them were like a happy family, making mooncakes together. They cooked together and played cards together very happily. While making skewers, Ji-pyung was so tired that he fell asleep. Dalmi immediately went to cover him with a blanket. When Grandma came out of the room, Dalmi quickly signaled Grandma to lower her voice. Seeing everything, Ji-pyung wore a happy smile and continued to pretend to be asleep. When Dalmi woke up in the middle of the night, she suddenly discovered that Ji-pyung had woken up and was still sitting making skewers. She immediately went to sit next to him. Ji-pyung wanted to help grandmother open a hot dog shop, but Dalmi turned him down because it wasn't the right time yet, because Dalmi wants to open her own hot dog shop for her grandmother. Ji-pyung said that he hoped he wouldn't make her feel uncomfortable. He hoped that whenever she was tired and having a hard time, the first person she would think of would be him. Ji-pyung felt that the feelings between him and Dalmi had developed another step, so he bought a gift for her. Ji-pyung took the gift and went to a secluded place and then started rehearsing how to start the conversation. He thought of countless reasons and excuses, and finally he mustered up his courage and walked out. On the way to find Dalmi, Ji-pyung unexpectedly ran into Dosan in the lobby. Ji-pyung asked Dosan why he was here. Only after learning that Dosan would return to America after his vacation ended did Ji-pyung breathe a sigh of relief. Then the two of them started talking. Dosan saw the gift box in Ji-pyung's hand. Dosan asked Ji-pyung who he was going to give the gift to. Ji-pyung was momentarily stunned. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to put the gift box on the table and pretend that his relationship with Dalmi was developing very well. Then, Ji-pyung Ji-pyung said that he was preparing to give a gift to Dalmi. Do-san was very disappointed when he heard that, but he pretended that nothing happened. Seeing Do-san's reaction, Ji-pyung stood up. He intentionally invited Do-san to meet Dalmi with him. Do-san also stood up, pretending that he had an appointment. He told Ji-pyung that I couldn't go with you. Hearing that, Ji-pyung turned around and left, leaving Do-san alone and extremely sad. Dalmi stepped out of the elevator. Do-san coincidentally passed in front of her. When Dalmi reacted, he was already far away. She hurriedly chased after Do-san. After searching for a while, Dalmi once again saw that familiar figure. With great difficulty, she managed to catch up, so Dalmi immediately reached out to pull Do-san back. She didn't expect that all the coffee would be spilled on her, and the other party was not Do-san at all. Seeing herself suddenly falling into such a miserable situation, Dalmi was momentarily confused. She could only continuously apologize to the other party. At this moment, the phone suddenly rang. Dalmi quickly picked up the phone, then didn't even bother to fix her clothes, and quickly ran back to the company. It turned out that they had just been attacked by a virus. All the documents had been encrypted. The other party demanded that their company pay $300 million within 12 hours, or this guy would delete the key to decrypt it. In this case, their company would lose all their data, and all their data on the autonomous vehicle division would disappear. All their investments would be in vain. They had reported it to the police, but it was useless. The police could not solve the problem immediately. The company's technical department said that the key code was too long, and it would take several days to crack it. She immediately suggested paying the hackers $300 million so they could get the decryption key and recover all their data. After all their algorithm development and car modifications had cost them $2 billion, so $300 million was considered very cheap. But all the company's money had been invested in new business, and they could not get that much cash now. Dalmi felt like she was sitting on hot coals, calling one person after another, but to no avail. She was browsing through her phone contacts when she suddenly saw Ji-pyung's number. Dalmi remembered what he had said. He hoped that when she was in trouble and tired, the first person she would think of would be him. She hesitated for a moment. She was about to press the call button when coincidentally, a phone call came in. Dalmi quickly picked up the phone. It was Do-san. It turned out that just now, when Dalmi's old colleague was helping out, Chul-san was coincidentally also by the colleague's side. Chul-san had told Do-san about this. Hearing Do-san's voice again, Dalmi was momentarily stunned and speechless. It took her a long time to react, and finally she couldn't help but burst into tears. Do-san comforted her and told her not to worry. He would be there in 20 minutes. Do-san quickly appeared. He immediately plugged in the USB drive and started working. The two technicians in the company felt very dissatisfied and angrily walked out. Chul-san soon appeared, followed by Yong-san. They worked together well, and in no time they found the decryption key and recovered all the data. Seeing that the problem was solved, Dalmi could finally breathe a sigh of relief. She was so tired that she collapsed. Do-san quickly picked her up and carried her to the resting area. The others understood and left. After learning that Do-san was just on vacation and would return to the US in a week, Dalmi felt very disappointed. She lowered her head to look at her clothes that were covered in coffee, and a button on her sleeve was missing. Dalmi quickly turned her head away and frowned slightly. Her current appearance was truly miserable. Early the next morning, Ji-pyung had just returned to the sandbox when he learned that Dalmi's company had been hacked. He rushed to her office and asked her how things were going. Hearing Dalmi say that the problem had been solved thanks to Do-san and his friends coming here to help, Ji-pyung saw Do-san's jacket next to him and felt a little disappointed. He said that it was lucky. Then Ji-pyung asked Dalmi if she was okay. Dalmi said that she felt very disappointed in herself. She didn't expect herself to be so miserable. She met Do-san again when she was at her most miserable. It was so embarrassing. She begged him not to tell anyone that she had cried. Ji-pyung then went to pull down all the curtains and told Dalmi to stay here and calm down and remember to lock the door. On this side, Do-san and his two friends were having breakfast. After a while of discussion, the three of them decided to stay in Korea to develop their careers. Do-san hurriedly ran to Dalmi's office. He wanted to get his coat back and tell her about his decision. As soon as he got out of the elevator, he coincidentally ran into Ji-pyung. Ji-pyung held So-san's hand tightly. He wanted to talk to Do-san. Ji-pyung asked Do-san if he was going to find Dalmi. Do-san asked back what right he had to know about this. Unexpectedly, Ji-pyung pretended that he had become Dalmi's boyfriend. After Do-san got out of the elevator, Ji-pyung felt that he had gone too far. He called Dalmi to clarify everything. Just now, to prevent Do-san from coming to find her, he said a few words that made Do-san misunderstand. If she went out now, she could still find Do-san. Unexpectedly, Dalmi said that she didn't need it anymore because she knew that Do-san was about to return to America. Do-san called her again, thinking that he would eventually return to America, and looking back at her miserable appearance at the moment, Dalmi resolutely refused to answer the phone. Then, she turned off her phone. Do-san called again, and hearing the notification notification that the other end had turned off the phone, he sadly put the phone down. The little hope that had just been lit was extinguished again. After returning home, he sat there watching the floating ball for a long time, and he couldn't help but recall the scene when the two of them first met. In the end, the floating ball that symbolized their love was thrown into the trash. Just like that, everything ended. However, yesterday Dalmi had cruelly rejected Do-san, but unexpectedly she came to ask for help today. It was very difficult to reach the top of the building. There were many investors here because of their reputation. Dalmi wanted to go directly to the office to find Do-san, but unexpectedly someone stopped her and told her to stand in line. She could only call Do-san. When Do-san saw that Dalmi was calling, he directly pressed the reject button. She sent him a message, but he didn't reply. After all the investors had left, Dalmi's phone rang again. Do-san hesitated for a moment and finally hung up. Unexpectedly, Dalmi was already standing at the door. The atmosphere immediately became awkward. He asked Dalmi why she came here. Hearing Dalmi say that she came here to invite them to work, Do-san immediately chased Chul-san and Young-san out. Then he told Dalmi that 3 years ago, she wanted to break up, so she said some words that hurt him a lot. It took him 3 years to accept that. He didn't want to continue like that. If they were no longer destined to meet, it would be better not to see each other again. Dalmi said that now hearing those words made her feel sad. She asked if he felt the same way back then, and then she sincerely apologized to him. It turned out that a few days ago, the company's senior developers were lured away by someone else. In-jae told Dalmi to invite Do-san's team. Only then did Dalmi learn that Do-san wanted to stay in Korea, but she still didn't agree. Dalmi thought that doing so would delay them. In-jae was extremely angry. She didn't expect Dalmi to think that her company was delaying Do-san's team. In-jae blamed Dalmi for working based on her emotions and not being worthy of being a director. In-jae gave Dalmi two choices. One was to invite Do-san's team to work in the company, and two was to be fired. In-jae said that she didn't need a director who would hinder the company. Dalmi was extremely angry. She thought that her sister was threatening her. Unexpectedly, even her mother and grandmother didn't support her. They both said that Dalmi was letting her personal emotions affect the company. As a director, if she thought like that, how could the company develop? So she reluctantly came here to find Do-san, but she didn't expect that Do-san didn't even give her a chance to speak and directly refused. Thinking about what Do-san said, she felt like she was about to go crazy. The night Do-san returned home, Do-san's father helped him pick up the baseball and put it in a transparent box. His father said that such a precious thing must be kept carefully. The next day, in order to forget about Dalmi, Do-san decided to follow his father's example when he was young. He cycled to his deceased uncle's house, wanting to use his physical fatigue to reduce the pain in his heart and drown out all his worries. After going through many difficulties, he finally arrived at his uncle's house. Do-san was exhausted and directly lay down on the bed outside the house. But unexpectedly, the more tired his body was, the clearer everything in his mind became. He didn't know when he fell asleep, but when he woke up, it was already dark. At this moment, Dalmi was limping towards him. Do-san thought he was hungry and had an illusion. He drank a few mouthfuls of water, not expecting that the person was really Dalmi. Do-san stood up and wanted to leave. Dalmi immediately held him back and said something to him. As a result, they returned together. Ji-pyong and Do-san met in the main hall. Ji-pyong called Do-san to stop. Ji-pyong wanted to get the old letters back from Do-san. Although Do-san was reluctant, he finally agreed. But the condition was that Ji-pyong had to return the aroid palm that Dalmi had given to Do-san. Do-san returned home and sorted through the old letters and found a letter that said, "To the person I love." He couldn't help but open the letter and read it. At this time, Ji-pyong's phone suddenly called, asking where the two of them would meet. Do-san said that he didn't need the aroid palm anymore and just pretended that nothing had happened. Do-san then decisively hung up, and Ji-pyong continued to call, but he didn't pick up. Unexpectedly, Ji-pyong carried the aroid palm and went straight to Do-san's house. The two were half drunk and half sober. Do-san said that he admired Ji-pyong very much. Do-san had once asked Dalmi why she liked him, and Dalmi said that it was because he was her first love. But in fact, the person who wrote the letters to her when she was young was Ji-pyong. The letters Ji-pyong wrote comforted her for a long time. When Do-san found out, he was very jealous. He tried to love Dalmi to defeat the beautiful memories between the two, but he found out that these things were not enough, so the two men confided in each other all night. Early the next morning, Ji-pyong woke up and found himself at Do-san's house. He got up and left the room, coincidentally hearing Do-san's mother asking him if she should add chili to the fish soup. Did Ji-pyong like spicy food? Do-san asked her mother if she had soybean curd. Hearing that Ji-pyong liked it, Do-san was planning to pack some for him to take home. Ji-pyong remained silent and quietly returned to Do-san's room. When Do-san came in and called Ji-pyong to drink the hangover soup, he was already dressed neatly. Ji-pyong suddenly got angry and said, "I'll take the letter and the potted plant back. Even if I took everything, I still wouldn't be able to compare to you because of your slowness. I originally intended to pretend to be stupid until the end, but there was no other way. Listen carefully, I'll only say this once. Get rid of your inferiority complex towards me and raise your self-esteem. When you see Dalmi again, you'll know who Dalmi likes. You can win the memories between the two of us with just those hands. Hearing Ji-pyung's words, Do-san immediately ran to find Dalmi. Seeing Dalmi, Do-san once again asked her why she liked him. She said that liking someone doesn't need a reason. Hearing this, Do-san was extremely happy. Ji-pyung accidentally met Dalmi in the elevator. Although he was a little embarrassed, he didn't try to avoid her anymore. Ji-pyung said that although he had read the letters she wrote, he had never come to see her in the past 15 years. The day Do-san finished reading those letters, he took the initiative to come to see her, so the Do-san in the letter was not Ji-pyung at all. Ji-pyung said that she didn't need to feel guilty, nor did she need to feel self-blame. Hearing these words, Dalmi felt relieved. In-jae had gone to find the Sandbox representative to ask for advice on fundraising, but unexpectedly the representative said that she couldn't help In-jae this time because this time they wanted to invest in In-jae's Chongmyung company. The representative then went to find Ji-pyung and told him that she believed that Chongmyung's company's potential was much higher than what they thought. The company will soon be successful, so she asked him to settle this matter as soon as possible. Ji-pyung was about to refuse, but he couldn't refuse. He could only ask Do-san out. Ji-pyung didn't hold out much hope either. He thought that Do-san would definitely refuse, but Ji-pyung didn't expect Do-san to accept directly. Ji-pyung asked Do-san that Ji-pyung had rejected Do-san last time, but this time, Do-san had agreed to accept the investment. Do-san said that last time it was because Ji-pyung pitied them, but this time it was because Do-san thought that investing in Chongmyung company was a real investment. After saying that, Do-san raised his hand in front of Ji-pyung. They had successfully cooperated. Thank you for watching the whole video. See you all in the next videos.